Okay, in this video we're going to talk about the Age tool. And first of all, when you click on this tool, you'll be presented with this screen. And you've got actually four sliders. You've got the life slider, the period slider, the factor slider, and also the value slider. See that on the vertical line on under value. So you note that it's already being displayed with the default settings of a age life of 40 years and a land to value ratio of 20%. And the period and factor are set at 1 and 1%. We'll talk about what that means here a little bit later. So first of all, we note here that the slope on this analysis is minus 2%. And that's based on the 40-year life and the improvements representing 80% of the overall value. Okay, so the value actually, to change the land value, you just point at that little button and move it up or down, and it'll recalculate the slope for you. So note when you change the land value that the improvement depreciation rate also changes. We're back to a 2% slope. You also notice if we were to change the life from 40-year life to a 20-year life, the scale at the bottom under age, that horizontal scale will change to a 20-year life, and the slope would be recalculated based on that. So it's a minus 4%. If, for example, you want an 80-year life, the slope would be a minus 1% a year. So you can play with both of those, the life and the land to overall value ratio, and get an idea what's going to happen with the slope. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is take a look at the slope of that line so we can calculate changes in value based on the depreciation rate. Notice that that line is we're calculating as just a straight line depreciation, and the issue there is it's very simple, but in most cases depreciation is not constant but changes over the life of the improvements. And so one proposed solution is that we segment this depreciation into smaller periods and assign different depreciation rates for each period. And that's where the periods and the factor sliders come into view. First thing is we're set right now with just one period for our depreciation over the life of the improvements. Let's move that to maybe 8 periods, and that would give us 8 5-year periods for a 40-year life. And so now what we want to do is think about giving each one of those 5-year periods their own depreciation rate. And typically with depreciation, we know that over the life of this 40-year property that you get to go down to where there's no value left in the improvements. But typically what we would expect to see is some kind of slower depreciation at the beginning and a faster depreciation at the end of the life. So the way that we adjust for that is the factor slider. So if we were to move that factor up to 10%, it actually recalculates each one of those depreciation factors for those 5-year periods and makes the adjustment. So as we increase that one, we notice that that curve tends to start bowing outwards to reflect maybe a little more realistic depreciation schedule. And also it would display that depreciation rate over the life of the improvements. The average is minus 2%, but you note that at the beginning it's less, and then later it becomes more, and that's based on the factor adjustment. We can play with that and move that up and down and watch that depreciation curve change as a function of how much we want to change each one of those periods. So if we just take that last 30% factor, we notice that the straight line is going to show much more depreciation through the life than a than a curved or an arc depreciation schedule. So now what we want to do is let's go ahead and put our subject in here. And we notice that that will display the years and also the depreciation, the effective depreciation on that property based on this curve that we're using to tell us what the depreciation should be. And if we move it back and forth, it'll recalculate the depreciation. And let's go to 20%. And now that we have that there, what we want to think about is putting a comp there against it. And if we did that, let's put a 30-year comp there, and we notice that we have the two depreciations, 78% and 55%. And we want to adjust the comp to the subject. What calculation would we use? It's actually a 42% adjustment. Remember, how we do that is we actually are looking for the percentage difference adjustment, and we have to add the percentage difference to the comp, not just the difference. And the way we calculate that is the percentage difference formula is the subject minus the comp divided by the comp. So in this case, we've got 78% minus 55% divided by 55%, which would give us 23% divided by 55%, or plus 42%. So if we had an example here, our subject's value is going to be equal to that equation. The comp plus 42% of the comp will give us a subject indication. So the next thing that we want to look at is if we had an example and our comp in this case was 200,000, the subject indication would be 200,000 plus 42% of 200,000, or 200,000 plus 84,000, or 284,000. So that's how we would make that calculation. Once again, the AgeTool will calculate that for you, so you can make that adjustment. Let's look at if the comp was on this side, 15-year-old comp. We see the two effective values, 88 and 78%. Remember, we can't just take 10% and make that adjustment. We've got to look at the percentage difference adjustment. In this case, it would be 11.4%, a minus 11.4%, which makes sense when we look at this. And the adjustment note, once again, we're adding the percentage difference, not the difference. So the formula, subject minus comp divided by comp, 78% minus 88% divided by 88%, would give us minus 10% divided by 88%, which is a minus 11.4%. So then we apply this to the comp. We're actually making that deduction to the comp to get the indication for the subject. So if our comp sold for 320, the subject indication would be 320 plus a minus 11.4% of the 320, which would be 320 minus 36,480, or 284,520. Those two values are very similar indications, and once again, it's based on the theory that we have a depreciation schedule, and we can use that to calculate the differences between comps and the subject. So that is our aging tool. The purpose of the aging tool is to give a quick interactive visual display and calculation of age difference adjustment based on a dynamic depreciation model. First, it adjusts for land values. That's easy to do, up and down. Then you can vary the depreciation, so depreciation rates over the life. You can then compare the comps to the subject. It'll calculate the percentage difference rates for the adjustments, and it will also prepare a note for the addendum explaining the procedure for your AR report. All right, that is the new AgeTool.